persistent little crickets. You know, you'd think it'd be over wheat in the winter, going into winter. Those things would have just stopped, would have felt they needed at least to keep warm. You'd think that we would just step up and do something just to keep warm, but wow. These new technologies, new insulation technologies must keep the crickets comfortable. I'm not talking about fiberglass. The insulation technologies are entertainment. Knowing you better than you know yourself and understanding what it takes to keep you from actually acting or creating some excuses. And I say that, and it's interesting, this last week or so I'm getting some interesting feedback, but apparently the people that don't really do much, that claim to be doing stuff, are the ones that really get upset. And I think about that, I just said that Solomon's from Brazilistan, his observation that there's a conflict of interest in people, why they don't come behind the woodshed, learn a lesson, and go out in the world and reteach it, was because that conflict of interest is exactly what I think that is. It's people that, as it occurred to me as I'm thinking through this, because I'm always looking for ways to communicate people, even the ones that have shut the door, that it's those that pretend are the ones that really can't tolerate being behind a woodshed and don't want to be mature enough to come and learn things. And or on the other side, if those lessons aren't being properly taught, respond to explain how I may have it wrong behind the woodshed in the principle I'm trying to explain, and the numerous principles that this is our the human frailty. For those of you that really, I appreciate, as I thought about this, I really appreciate that those of you that do tune in and keep coming back and listening, and I know you're working hard to figure things out and find a place that you can work with this. You know, I just kind of look at that and say, wow, we're a small group of people. We're not really the pretenders. The pretenders apparently hate me, and I really don't have I don't look at it that way. I look like I'm trying to explain things, at least give the information that I've learned. And yet there's this human response, and it's grounded in quite a few things. We're told a lot about it, but this human response keeps us, for whatever excuse, no blame, it's just what we do, it keeps us from being responsive. And that's not going to cut it. It really is not going to cut it. The world, again, you're going to lose because of your silence. The silence is the victory that is going to be made against you. And I don't know what more to say. I just keep focusing on it. I was going to start about some other topic, and it just, as soon as I start the broadcast, I get all the clicking done. This thing flashes in my mind, and I'm talking about this. It's something that's been wearing down on us as a people, me particularly this week, in just looking at it and trying to figure out what is our problem. We really have a lot of answers. Why aren't we fixing this? And I think that's the answer. We're not fixing it. We have the answers, and we are not fixing it. And we were required to fix it, as anybody would that has somebody offend them, that somebody transgresses them by whatever mechanism, and we don't. We take it, and that's really got to stop. And I'm just hoping maybe, you know, it's getting kind of. I see the victories here and there. I see more people doing things, and that's the only, like, a very slim thread. But overall, it's not looking very good for us. The ways of life of the world, the thought that you're going to have a place to be peaceful within your own construct of your cultures is coming fast to an end. Monoculture is diversity. You're not going to have any culture than the one that you are trained to behave correctly. And I was able to listen a little bit to the prior broadcasts of the James Colbert explaining. And it's interesting. There's a lot of words read really fast. You know, there's a lot of mind-numbing words. But you know, when you start learning the language, every word they're saying becomes a clue that they're in the world destroying your world, in preference of something that's a fantasy. It's an excuse. It is another fundamentalism. And this word fundamentalism is going to come up really quickly here as I run down through the tabs. They want to, I've told you, they're going to destroy all religions, not by destroying the religion, but by allowing you to do what you think you're going to do, as long as you're committed to enforce the new global order. And to speak an hour before that to Ron, saying that it's a trust. I typed in the UCY chat room. We now have a publication. They explain this as well. I think the professor's name is Mary Woods, a very high-level professor in Oregon, wrote a book called Nature's Trust. So Ron's correct. It's a trust. It may not be called the Nature's Trust. These are the ideas they advance in their publications. And I've talked to you about that before, a long while back. And I explained to you about that, getting the children to file lawsuits, and they got into the appellate courts of Oregon. Oh, save us from this stuff. And they tried to impose this Nature's Trust. Well, if you look very carefully, I explained to you, they're adulterating the public trust doctrine, which was to be strictly constrained to the international law side of navigable rivers and navigability. And so they're trying to bring this commerce-related connection through the ecological terrorism effort, through the economic plunder, again, through the commerce and imposition, up the rivers into your lands. Now that court case got denounced, and it didn't get actually denounced on the theory of the trust. It got denounced on another purpose. And Mary Woods sits there to be the guru-ess of this agenda. She's leading, one of the leaders in how they explain what's going on. And so when you hear these, the hosts are bringing the information, there is so much more information underneath all of that proves this thing out. We're beyond question. It's just a matter of who's going to step up to defend ourselves, and where. It's not really that choice. You don't have to make the right choice there. Just make the choice to involve yourself, engage. It doesn't have to be the perfect choice. In fact, you're going to probably find out it's probably not the perfect choice you'd make, but you're finding out that when you got involved, you now got you got your water wings on because the seas are pretty rough, and you're still swimming, and you're swimming in something you didn't think you were going to be into, but you're having a cause and effect. It may not be something that you choose. It kind of chooses you in a way once you commit. So, crickets, folks. Generally, for those of us that are still behind the woodshed, I have to say that you continue to come back. You inside, you're not a pretender, whether or not you've actually chosen something. Just stick with it. There's only going to be a few of us, it seems, for right now. Yes, that ripple is expanding, and the properness of the ripple, the proper response is going out. I've told you, we can respond wrongly, and that's not going to be a right response. You're still effectually a cricket if you respond wrongly. If we keep divided, if we keep off point, if we get too much going, and apparently my problem, part of my problem is I sound like I have too much going, and people don't really understand the subject matter that claim they know. The pretender will say they understand, and when I come along with my subject matter training, that I start talking about these concepts, they're so much more comprehensive than anybody that I've met on, and again, just on these points. I'm not all world knowledge, just a few of these points, that they find out how little they actually know. So they're either ignorant or they're a plunderer, and they're pretending to be someone that wants to help you. And these are the guys that apparently that turn away from me or get pissed off at me immediately, because they realize, I'm pretty sure, and you know this in your life, when you walk up against someone who doesn't know, you can't be nice enough to explain how wrong they are. So again, I was just thinking, I appreciate the listeners, as I do. I'm just realizing, trying to figure out, how do we communicate with people, folks? I've been doing this for years. What am I supposed to do? You know, the internet's a wonderful thing. It glows to the world, right? But it's not quite like standing in the public square. Or maybe it is. No one pays attention there anymore. But this isn't like people have to know to come to the broadcast, and they have to be willing to stay. They have to find value in it. And if they're a pretender, they're either puffing up what they know, or they know and they're one of the people that are harming us. And for those, you just got to move past. But to get the word out, it really is all of us telling everybody. So I guess as I just thought about that, if you would promote the broadcast. I don't do too well at that. Find other networks that may take on a broadcast that goes for 2 hours nonstop, without commercials. Just have them tack on like UCY did, just like anybody else who simulcasts. This is how we're going to have to get this word out. We are going to have to meet more people, though. We're going to have to find those people that really need the information. Even the ones that are energetic but don't have it quite right. I see a lot of that actually. There's a lot of people. It's a very subtle too. Everyone thinks, not everyone, those that do. We ran across another suggestion of that someone wants to get involved with the Jefferson Mining District, and their words just tell me they're just don't have the foundational knowledge to advance to fix the harm that's against them. And so it's a slow process. So anyway, just crickets are going to be with us. I can just see it. And you're the listener behind the woodshed is going to be the ones that have a more proper understanding as I bring all this stuff really just to expose it to you. And you have to take and utilize that. I do my best to try and explain it. And I do it as neutrally as possible. But I do it, well, I will do it pretty sternly if you're that far off. I'll try to I want to get you focused on a more proper path for yourself is really the point. And so I may truncate, I may limit the communication sequence. Why? Because if you're not quite getting the idea quite right, you're wasting time to go down a trail you thought was going to get you there, and I'm realizing no, that's not going to go. We need to stop quick and step back and do something else. So again, appreciate you all tuning in, and appreciate if any promotion you can do for the broadcast to get in other places. I really, I think I'm one of the few, can't be the only, but I'm one of the few that I think really does put out information. If you understand, if you can get into what I'm doing, what I'm saying, it really is beyond, like I say, I'm beyond, I put this now little Twitter thing, beyond media. This is not media. This is you in the war. This is you engaging. And the whole broadcast was set up to empower that. And it is comprehensive, and it is out there. It's beyond most people. Most people haven't spent a lot of time to do this. I just happen to be blessed in some way to be able to focus, and I committed to focus on this stuff. That's the only distinction and difference. But there again, I'm here to I'm here to provide that research where most people can't. And so this is what it's going to, we all have our little place and part to play with each other, you know, the part to play with our resistance to this. I really, more and more I look at this and believe it, think about it, the revolutions has to stop. We have to get off the wheel of history. And you know, I said before that we're looking at, like, over in Russia, Syria and Russia, and Constantinople last week I talked about it. We're looking at the end of a history here at some point as we go along on this. That history change requires a new history. We have to be in the dedication seat of what that history is going to be. And there's been a whole lot of people working real hard, really hard, to make that their decision. And all you have to do is look around and see what they're doing, and then you have to make a decision. Do you want that? Is that what you want in your life or not? And last week, I said Maurice Strong's death. I said his energy is going to be around, folks. It's going into the new history if we don't stop it. They will make the new history for us once the old one dies. And I say, as I wrote in the blogcaster, good riddance to him and his kind. It literally is an insanity. It's not based in anything, and it's based in the amount of fraud they can pass by everybody. And that includes this is going into governance now, because I have to explain that. This is into governance, and governance goes corporate. It goes global by corporate commerce, international, admiralty, whatever you want to talk about it, the treaties. It's really not treaties. You know, the pact, I made a conversation last week, the pact, P-A-C-T, that's considered a treaty. They want to call it a pact. They don't want to tell you it's an actual treaty. But here's the problem. Here's where you still have a final stand. Whether or not it can be done, I don't know. Whether or not the politicians that are lawyers, that are also actors in the world, are going to overcome your world. We have another chance, because that so-called treaty has to be ratified in the Senate for the United States of America. So it's not really a treaty. And so the more of us that learn the basics of that and can write to these people that are supposed to be your representative, you can put the pressure on them. As I've tried to show you, the pressure comes by, I think, as well, starting to let them know as a representative in your state, you're representing the state as a senator, that if he uses this authority to diminish your property rights, your remedies, your way of life, that would be a felony, theft by extortion, and a felony conversion. And you don't have to accuse them. You just just remind them. Maybe we have to start throwing that in. Maybe you learn that in some states, some of you have the right to arrest, make and charge complaints. Learn that law, write it down, say I have the right to do this, and if you take my representation and you abuse it, I'm going to have to come after you because you ruined my life. You don't have a right to ruin my life. So that's where you can jump in. I've been trying to give you all the ways you can do that. Not all of them, but the ones that come to me based on the news, the notice we have on where all this is going. They're telling us everything. It's it's going to be really a shame on us that we don't respond. This is no different a battle than you're seeing over in the Middle East. They've just done it so sharp you didn't recognize it. One of the ways that the governance works through the corporation, you'll see every corporate website I've found so far talks about sustainable something. So this is the global governance control. This is where all the so-called free trade agreements go through. It's not free. It's your servitude. The whole plan is an economic servitude on the world. The capacity building that you hear about, that's them building the capacity to hurt you faster and longer. Their capacity to impose. And you hear it's all, like I said, when you understand the language, it actually starts to make you sick. I can't read a lot of it. I have friends who work with this and who are doing their study and their action, and they try to read stuff to me, and I said, don't. They start the first 5 words, like, that sentence goes to here. I don't want to hear it no more. And they go, yeah, how'd you know? I said, well, I've read enough of it. It's all the same nonsense. It's over and over and over. And they use these words, and this is what they're going to say in the next paragraph. Or they'll start reading me a passage from a lawsuit or some communication. And they get to the first sentence, and I go, okay, so the next sentence is going to say this, the next sentence is going to say that, and then they're going to jump over here and they're going to talk about this part. And they start reading, and I go, yeah, that's what they just said, right? Well, how'd you know? Because that's the plan. It's already written what they're going to do to you. So governance is corporate also. Don't limit it to that. It's another part of this. And part of the destruction of your life is controlling your health, your well-being, that affects your decision-making and your ability to, and it's again a challenge, a test, a war against your free will and the ability to make the right choice. The noise becomes the non-disclosure cover. That they can disclose something to you, you don't even see the disclosure. They say, well, we told you, but you were so absorbed by the noise around that you failed to respond. That the food that you're going to get, the medicine, the medical care. I mean, you're hearing like Obamacare. You're hearing one of the biggest providers is going to back out. They just can't do it. They're realizing this. They can't do it. And folks, they were given the carte blanche decision on how this would work, and they still can't do it. To show you how stupid these people really are. But they're the ones that are attacking us. And so it pleases me to announce to you, the attack is on. You're going to have to prepare. The attack's going to be on everybody at some point, at some level. But right now it's against those that appear to have an academic or a professional voice to show you a difference than what the common statement is by all these different sources, whether they're the regular media, from any source, whether you can't even be called alternative, folks. Like I said behind Woodshed, I've been so beyond the media. I just decided to claim it. I'm beyond media. This is information for your survival, and I don't mean like a prepper survival, although that's a little part. I'm talking about your life survival in the sense of your societal survival. The society that is handing over to a few people in every little parts of the society the decision against them. And they're utilizing that representative capacity and your silence to take you out. But the corporations sit there to stop allowing you to hear the proper the proper dynamic, or a more proper dynamic, whether or not they're doing correctly or not. Now, we've talked a lot about the fraud of the corporations with the agencies that are supposed to be looking out for you, but they don't care about you because the agencies tied to the government are tied to the bottom line. And so it's a very big deal when these kinds of stories come up where that scientist who discovered the GMOs that causes the tumors in rats wins a landmark defamation lawsuit in Paris, of all places. I mean, you know, I wish we were really integrated. We have a whole bunch of people rallying up right now, not for climate change, but with this kind of a decision, walking in and saying, listen, what you want to bring through this climate change is to fulfill this little plan you got, and that little plan you got wants to feed Monsanto, wants to feed these other corporations that are killing us, and this scientist just showed in a defamation suit that what he was saying, what they said against him to defame him, was incorrect. You don't have the right to take these defamations and use them as an authority to control the world. That's just an accessory to the fact of the felony. Was the French professor Gilles Eric Seralini correct when he discovered the scientific feeding experiments past 90 days with GMO food in rats can cause health and serious problems, including tumors? The answer to that question has been debated ever since the initial publication of his study, culminating in the republication of the study in another peer-reviewed journal that wasn't nearly as covered as the initial retraction was by the mainstream media. Now, Professor Seralini is in the news again, this time for winning a major court victory in a libel trial that represents the second court victory for Seralini and his team in less than a month. On November 25th, the High Court of Paris Treaty, climate change, UN, global governance, it's all right there. I always find this fascinating how the center of the universe shows up at the center of the universe to show you the proof if you just see that it's there. At any rate, in court in Paris indicted Mark Fallis, you fill in that name there. The former chairman of the France's Biomolecular Engineering Commission for forgery and the use of forgery. The details of the case have not been officially released, but according to the article from Seralini's website, Fallis used copied the signature of the scientist whose name was used without his agreement to argue that Seralini and his co-workers were wrong in their studies of the Monsanto product, including GM corn. The sentencing for Fallis is expected to in June of 2016, and I just thinking about this, you know, Grammy Murray and Grimner would have a blast with this. But at any rate, second, I don't do that behind Woodshed for some reason. It's fun, but not what I'm after, I guess. Second court victory, you probably like it, probably be more fun to listen to. But second court victory reached. This was the second such court victory for the professor's team following a November 6th victory in a defamation lawsuit over an article in the French Marianne magazine, which categorized Seralini's team research as scientific fraud. What few people realize about the original Seralini study on the GMO is that it was only retracted after serious PR offensive from Monsanto and the biotech industry. Biotech, folks, this is biotech. This is not just bioagra, this is not just biopharma, this is not just pharma, this is not just agra, this is biotech. This is every biological technology that's applied to all technologies, even your food. This is what's up against this. They're all corporate sustainability professors. And I don't mean that at the university. I mean they profess it, they promote it. One of which include the creation of a whole new position in the original Food and Toxicology Journal, associate editor for biotechnology. The new position was actually filled by the former Monsanto employee who helped convince the journal's author to retract the study. Now, more than 2 years later, these are the facts. Seralini and his team's original study has been republished in a different peer-reviewed journal, Environmental Sciences Europe. They have won 2 key lawsuits against those who have attempted to ruin their reputation, and a recent peer-reviewed letter even asserted that Seralini and his team may have been right after all on their discovery showing that tumors in lab rats are fed GMOs. In other words, the jury is still out on GMO safety, to say the very least, at least, folks. But yes, as countless as independent science have warned, and Seralini's study stands as yet another cause for concern with the ongoing GMO experiment. Again, I've weighed in on this. Science has not shown us that on the very first problem of the response of the cell. So for right there, I've got a main problem. For you, your voice, your vote is your actually your lack of consent to keep agreeing to take in these products and keep agreeing to these corporations. But here's I guess what I want to point out is there's someone who tried to do a study to try and show what was the truth. They got beat on. It took them 2 years and a couple lawsuits. If you step up, you have to be cognizant of this this tactic. And believe me, it's always ever present in my mind. Though we're kind of a small target. This is just another way to waste your time, but it's also that opportunity I keep suggesting to you. Now I don't know if this type of justice would happen in the United States, but it is right there in Paris, right where this meeting is. That they talk about climate change and getting a climate treaty, a pact, but in fact that's just the tip of a tool that also incorporates the very same attack that happened to this scientist. Someone trying to be doing science. I mean, I don't even know if he's good or bad or indifferent. They made so much question now. You'd have to kind of look at everything. That's what I said. It becomes so much work now to find out whether or not people are actually doing stuff. And then you also have me here behind the woodshed telling you, folks, you're as much a scientist as a scientist. They've been working on so many wrong theories for so long, we don't even know what science is, it seems, except for the fact that science is really just the method of exploration of what we think we know. That's why I've kind of called it scienceology. We study the study of what we think we know of science. Yes, there's things we've done that make us get here and it works out pretty well, but it's not accurate. I can be wrong about how the sun radiates light and how we live on the sun. I can be completely wrong about how that works, and we'll still be fine. I can build a whole society around that wrong imposition and that wrong observation, and we will still be fine. Why? Because the sun operates in nature, operates on how it works, and we're here because of that. So it doesn't matter. Our opinions of it all is irrelevant. It's the point of our survival, as the point of our reaction to it. It's irrelevant that man causes global warming at the point the sun could spit out something one day and just incinerate us all. All that's irrelevant, what we do. So man can have all kinds of fancy theories, completely wrong, and in the face of a nature that actually, the reality, it will continue. And that opinion has nothing to do with the reality. So you can prove your failed opinion all day long, because it's not relevant. In fact, a lot of people use that logic. Oh, because this agency did not regard and does not make a distinction between this factor and this factor, it's not a factor. That's an improper application of the logic. If it's not a factor, then you shouldn't be talking about it. If it's irrelevant, it's not a factor. It has no relevance. Don't take that as some kind of a proof for a position. That's really a big one, actually. In fact, I'm dealing with it here this week also. Because some agency makes a writing that doesn't make a distinction between two irrelevant points, the one who makes the writing says those 2 points are then concurrent, and therefore where the agency makes no regard of the distinction, then we shouldn't, is an improper way to approach that problem. Absolutely. And that's what we do to ourselves. That's why I tell you the right response is really the critical one we have to figure out. That's a little bit tougher. And you may have to anger some people, I guess, to get there, but not that it was ever my intention. And I know the people I work with, this is how I got to the pretender folks. The pretenders get mad because, and I know this, it's just the pretenders, because all the ones that I do work with, see, if I had not worked with people that I do work with, in other words, I am able to work with some people, I mean really well, I would not have this measure to look at this whole problem, trying to find out how to get to people that just aren't helping. But if I can work with a handful of people really well, those that can't work with me must be the definition. And so the ones that actually do something, we work well together. Those that are telling you they're doing something, we don't. It's just a facade. It's just a pretension. It's all pretentious. And so this is I told you this a long time ago in a different way. You can tell by someone's immediate actions whether or not they're working with you. You can tell by their words whether or not they're going to work with you. You can tell by their responses whether or not they're just putting a facade in front of you. And you can start making decisions on how you attempt to try and make more discussion to bring them in to become effectual in what you've seen needs to be done. Or you can identify them as someone that will never come into that. And that's important to not waste your time. That also came up at the recent Mining Association meeting. People that will get so understanding what's going on and seeing how people are destroying themselves that they care enough for the other people that they don't want to see them destroyed, and they go to them and they plead with them. You need to stop. You need to do this over here instead. And they tell them, the people that one is trying to help, they tell them, we don't want to. We have nothing to do with this, and stop talking to us. And so he wants to push a little bit harder. And if I told him, I said, listen, once you've explained it to them and they choose not to, you still offer your help, but you have to turn your attention to those that may be willing. And apparently there's not a lot that are willing. I always ask just for the commitment first, and then we can move. If you don't commit, actually, that's why I keep asking you to commit. Find the wrong you need to make right. Commit to something. That's the defining point. That's a major defining point. So you'll come under attack. This scientist, this article says it's still a question about GMOs. It's not a question to me, but it might be a question to you. But there's the question, and yet this is going to underpin all these agreements, these international agreements that corporations are making with the blessing of the state, the government, the nation, that is on the tap to affect your life. The proof of the fraud of which, or at least the question of which, is here for you as evidence. As we find out that we do these testings on these animals, and they, remember I told you, they don't give you food, they give you feed in these things that they do to us. And you can agree to that by being silent. You can agree to that by buying the product or not opposing it or not writing somebody to tell them about it. But I told you, in the law, you're treated as animals. And there's always evidence of this if people were just to see it. And again, it's not, if you haven't done the reading, you think I might be insultive here. You may be thinking I'm of an opinion that made it up. But you just got to go to the United States Code. And I told you start at Title 50, that's a big deal. But then you go to Title 7, Title 21, Title 15. They all treat you as these human animals. And the news out this week is the very same point. Everybody thinks differently about this. I mean, I've seen some comments about it, and they kind of disassociate what the statement is onto your pets, I would say, onto your domesticated animals, I would say. But in fact, the way I read this is they're telling you exactly they're coming after you. When I read the FBI to start tracking animal cruelty in 2016. Now you know they're not going to track a government cruelty upon you. And you're saying, what? They said tracking animal cruelty. That's what I said. Animal is you. The code that the FBI comes from under to enforce has you as a pest animal. It's written in the code, if you just read it, that this was a notice to us that they're coming to track you, the animals, even though they're talking about your dog and your cat and everything else. When the law treats you as an animal, this applies. Senator Joe Fain holds his dog Waffles, how cute, as Governor Jay Inslee signs a May bill. Fain sponsored expanded the state's animal cruelty laws in Olympia, Washington. Remember, Inslee is the guy who worked in collusion with Kitzhaber, who's now disgraced and out of office, making a multinational, international compact, eco-terrorism compact between California, Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia to impose eco-terrorism. That's what our lawsuit was also about. That's why I know about this. A year after the perfection of our lawsuit, or actually the year after the default entered and the perfection, suspiciously and magically, Kitzhaber gets kicked out of, resigns. And then comes exposed this issue with Inslee being a globalist. And this animal cruelty is this behavior modification stuff that's coming down. You think it's about your dog. they'll be working the same logic on you. The measure makes it a civil offense to lock any animal in a car or enclosed space in dangerous condition like extreme heat or cold. The FBI will be tracking causes of animal cruelty nationally in 2016. That's called domestic violence as well. I don't know if you figured that one out. So what they also do is they get the probable cause to believe, combined with their community caretaking, to now go after just about anything that moves in a car or any other place, but they can believe upon you, falsely or rightly, to be a violation. I don't know if you understand this, but pets are considered to be a scourge. Domesticated pets are a scourge under UN. Their carbon footprint's too big. I hope you're pulling all this together, folks. It's right there to see. It's really astonishing what these people end up doing. The FBI will be tracking cases of animal cruelty nationally. What's that, folks? That's a federal organization. What are they caring for? But this is showing you that you really don't have any states. Animal cruelty, that's not a federal thing. That's not something that goes across borders. So you see the diminishment. You see there exists no actual state law here. Now, the cruelty to animals in commerce, maybe. But respective of a jurisdiction of the state, no. That's not going to happen. But they're going to put it out there. Here they are, tracking animals, folks. I think that's going to be untapped for you. And another way they're going to track, these FBI is going to track the animals, is they plan to collect IDs from FOIA requesters and really just intimidate you. But the FBI has a new electronic FOIA submission tool on its website. And guess what? It requires that you scan a copy of your government ID'd, government-issued ID card before asking the government to release documents to the public. Is that part of the FOIA request, the requirements, folks? You need to go read that. This is to intimidate people that are going to go after the FOIA. And then they put you on that list because now anybody who asks for FOIA to question the government becomes a terrorist, aren't they? And the NDAA can kick in, doesn't it? You see how the noose is tightening, and yet it's invalid. This FOIA submission tool on its website, why are you using that tool? You should just send a letter. You send a letter and you send the 4 things that you're supposed to do. Make sure the request is specific, but give them a date, the time that they want to search. Tell them that you're going to use it for a future lawsuit to check some indiscretion you found. And do what the FOIA says. Just write it down. It's not that hard. It's actually not that hard at all. And don't use the website. And if they come back to you and say you're going to have to give us an ID, then you sue them. Most people don't like to hear that. I wouldn't sue the FBI. I'd sue the agent who demanded that ID. And what is one of your answers? To put all this in practice a bit, not all of it, but some of it, just as it quickly. Remember, government-issued IDs are what? They are the form of privilege for operating a motor vehicle. An ID comes out of the same authority and issuance for what they issue out of driver's licenses. An government-issued ID, the ID card, is a non-driver driver's license when you look at the rules. And so I've told you this before in another capacity. When the federal government went in their court says you have to have a government-issued ID to walk in, and they only pull from United States citizens that typically come out of the pool of motor vehicle operators, they're pulling from the privileged class operating motor vehicles on the highway, not from the people. And you're in a corporate condition right there, that when you have to put a government ID to get in the place, they tell you that they're a corporate or local legislative commerce entity. You can't get in unless your papers say you have agreed to be a commerce entity. That's what your ID represents. And so what they've done, and we've argued this, and they couldn't answer, but it didn't matter to me. I didn't want to go in anyway. So I can't show up because I can't get in the front door. I don't have a privilege card. That kind of stunned them a bit. Didn't quite know what to do with that. Now, they'll drag you in the back door to arrest you, to stick you before the judge without one of those IDs, but they won't let you in the front door. And that government ID is a commerce connection document. You can give it to them if you want. Or you can stand your ground and say you don't have the right to mischaracterize me, or if you were here to pretend you were offering justice, you can't stop me. You're not going to do that at the door when you walk in there and go up against the marshals Well, you can make a record. They'll tell you to go back out. So you make the record of the refusal of access of the courts. But why are you there anyway when you find out it's a legislative court? See how they work it all backwards if you're not there. You shouldn't even be going down there. You should be writing your paper to explain this on the record. But government-issued IDs being required says you're in commerce. Those government-issued IDs are surrogate identifications for motor vehicles activity, operations. It's written for you. You can not believe me, you can believe me. It doesn't matter if you believe. You have to see it for yourself, and then you'll get the right answer. You won't be the guy that says, oh, capital names means corporations. No, you'll be able to read the rule that says that, no, the capital name designates a corporate legal entity debtor. That's a bigger deal, because what do I keep telling you about economic constructs and commerce is what they're attaching to that you have to see. So that the FBI wants to come up and get you to give them an ID admits that you are in commerce. Now, what's the importance about that is because in 1917 they said trading with the enemy is a crime, and in 1933 they said that the exception to citizens of the United States is going to be removed. So all y'all are enemy combatants. It's all in commerce. Trading with the enemy is commerce with the enemy. It's not so hard to tie this together. So this give me your papers please imposition by the FBI, stop using their website. Just send a letter. I always like doing that anyway. You have to. Why? You want that return receipt requested certified mail recording. Why? Because they'll deny what you're doing. We have it all the time. And I turned around. I learned really, really quickly. They tried to do that in the first one. I just called out the one who denied my information as committing a crime. And I did it because I had sent some information in prior that should have been part of the FOIA return for the records relating to that subject matter. That should have at least been in the file where they were saying they had no records. And so I primed the pump for acknowledging, calling out the felony and the one who said there was no information. Guess what? That's just what you have to do. Within about 6 months, I got a lot of information. So you have to, this is a war. You have to learn how to play this war, play the game of this war. This is serious, serious business. These people want you out of the picture. You are going to need to use the tools that are there in order to get what you need to get. You're going to have to think of the ramifications of what you do and have a cover for that position. I know it's a lot. I told you I don't really like this. People say, oh, you must enjoy this. Oh, you write so much. A friend of mine just found out, he started laughing. He goes, do you still not know how to type? With all the paperwork you've put out, you still don't know how to type. And he started laughing. He goes, I don't know how you do it. I don't know either, folks. I just do. I don't make that a handicap. And I don't know. I make lots of mistakes, but I have to correct them. It's a long time consuming process, but I keep plugging away. And that's weary. I mean, it's wearying. But that's what we're in, folks. I don't know what to say. I guess we all could just give up and go away. That's our choice. But again, it's not because I can come and talk kind of quickly and roll this stuff out and insult everybody that doesn't want to listen and maybe engage those that do. It takes the energy to do so. You are putting out it is the sacrifice you need to do, but it's because they're taking advantage of that condition that said that we were told early on. It's a republic if you can keep it. They're testing the if you can keep it part. They've already overthrown the way the republic works, and we've identified in that lawsuit I keep telling you about. We've identified how. So now I understand. I really now know how a republic is supposed to work. It was a big. Everyone talks about it, but you don't really sit down and think about it. You don't quite understand this. But I think I now see a major way how. I mean, the bulk of how this republic was supposed to work, and it really is through your land, your property, and the laws that protect it. That's what you look very carefully at the Declaration of Independence. So these people undermine that immediately. Now they're after whether or not you're going to be vigilant enough to keep it. And we don't have to go, and they did it in a way that your Second Amendment is the final resolve, which may or may not be effectual. That we don't have to go there, and that's why I say no. We don't have to go there. We just got to stop these psychopaths and sociopaths in our face, and they are in our face. And these FBI people we found out are criminals because they'll come in and protect the government against a show cause complaint. Show cause how you're not a felon or committing treason. They came and attacked us, so we know they're the criminal as well. Now, do we just do it? We go up there and we wave a flag in front of the bull? No. We knew what they did. They came back and said, we're terrorizing the government, of all things. And we claimed, look at the bottom of the paperwork, it says we're duty-bound to do this. Article 18 USC, Code 18 USC sub 3 and 4. Go look at that. No, we're duty-bound to say that, to question this, to charge this. But now we know who you are, FBI. And it is what you know it is. It's the ones that set up all these terrorist things to make you believe it's real. They find the idiots out there, the real ones that don't know, but maybe even mentally deficient ones, however they get there, genetically or societally, and they feed them a line and get them to believe to act. That's taking advantage. No one calls that out, but that's who these people are. We're getting the proof, folks. It's serious business, and it's serious. We're really having to watch what we do here. But this is the trouble. This is what they're up against. Now they're trying to come against you. I'll be on record here to say, stop using that dang website. If you get a little more gumption, go ahead and address that. Go to the DOJ and say, what the hell are you doing here, requiring me to be some kind of privileged person instead of the man or woman that I am, needing the justice. Have something to say here. Put the challenge out. I can't believe I'm really one of the only people that know how really to do this. That'd be a sad day to find that out. I know there's a lot of people out there. It's not that hard, and I'm just wondering why we're taking so long to kind of get organized in our independent action. See, we can still act unified independently if we're all doing the right things. If everybody that asked a FOIA had to go to that website, see, most people know how to do FOIAs. They don't go to the website. So they're preying on the ignorant. And they'll get what they can get. They ask you for what they wanted to ask you for, and you give it to them. Like they ask you for that application, to stick it to yourself, and you give it to them in the government for their privileges. And they get us trapped in there, and now we got a problem. And that's not such an easy way to resolve, but it still has to be resolved. So the FOIA, the FBI is going to come on you. They want to give you another list. These gangsters are right there to take you down. They're going to continue until they get called out. And I'm saying, don't call out the agency. Call out each man or woman that's got the signature on the letter that does it. That's what I did. They tried to say there was no record on a file. I knew it was full of record. Why? I knew at least 5 documents were in there. I had given them in that record. So I primed the pump for their failure, folks. You got to really think a little bit about this. It's not just knowing the codes and the laws and knowing some rules, and this is a whole other thing. And I said I don't like it. I don't like typing it. I don't like having to frustrate myself through something I can't do real well, like typing, to write letters. But it's something that's got to be done. I don't know what else to say about that. Because these gangsters are in the world. They're moving an agenda forward. It's in commerce at some point. It's economically driven. We have all the different facets of it are coming together now. I told you the Pope coming in September. I said here it comes in December. I told you that way back in December of the year before. This is the year that it starts to roll out and roll down. They're rushing their bums rush to the exits right now, and then this little thing pops up, which just caught my eye. Well, the gangsters and Maurice Strong dying, he's going to be out of here, and in this little story out of nowhere, and I'm just going to, I don't really have a comment. I just wanted to know, why was this statement, this little paragraph in this story that says that Pope Francis threats 4 men arrested after alleged threat against Pontiff, that this little statement comes up. I want to read the rest. I'm just going to read this part. For all you conspiracy theorists, or all you old end times, listen to this statement. It just comes out of nowhere. And I've done some research. I can't find any other reference to this. So why this is stuck in here out of nowhere, I don't know. But this is what this chief prosecutor, here's a bar member again, folks, rule of law, global order, out of a chief prosecutor, Tommaso, not tomato, Tommaso Buonanno, told the Associated Press this: remember, there won't be any pope after this one. This is the last. Don't forget what I'm telling you. He says, remember, there won't be any pope after this one. This is the last. Don't forget what I'm telling you. Isn't Isn't that fascinating? In the same week of that week, we come out, when they rolled out the Paris Treaty, this Pope that's going to be the last Pope, and don't forget what he's told us. There ain't going to be no more. What did I tell you about the end of history, folks? It's looking like we're getting there. Now, are you going to be on the example of what the new history is going to be, or are you going to let someone declare that for you? What does that mean? I don't know what that means, except for I'm going to have to remember what he said, aren't I? But that's really intriguing. It's completely out of the character of the article. Just drops it in. Told the Associated Press, particularly named in this time. Sometimes they don't tell you. It's particularly named that it went to the place that disseminates all the news. This is a global recognition. But in the same week, we show you the celebrity now that we found out the attorneys, the politicians, and the actors are all actors here. The pop goes the pontiff. Pope Francis rocks out on a new album. If you didn't think there's a celebrity rollout about this climate change nonsense, promoting that encyclical, yeah, you're not really paying attention to the fascinating stage play that's going on. It's a musical now, folks. Pope Francis, wake up, believe digital. He's a global pinup who fills stadiums and thrills fans, and now Pope Francis has released what is essentially a rock album. Now, all you rock and roll fans, I'm sure the phrases are flying out of you right now. Rock anthems and all that stuff. I wish I was that focused again. That's a lot of fun. We have what here? Fills stadiums and thrills fans. He's a global rock star, pop rock star. He's a celebrity. He's like the Fred Thompson guy last week. He's a lawyer, politician, actor. He's a celebrity. I think I can go on. This is the Paris Treaty musical on the stage of the world, playing out. Actually, I'm kind of. I think it's pretty humorous. I'm driven by the lack of humor, though. But I'm actually thinking this is really, really funny. In fact, last broadcast, I was critiquing the broadcast as I go and listen for it after, because I'm listening for the broadcast quality and audio quality and statements I make and how messed up I did. Sometimes I told you I make some word slips and they're not quite right. Like supposed to be the Persian Gulf and the Omar Sea. I said Asiatic. I don't know where I even got that, but I hope you corrected that for me. But I'm listening to my presentation last week to you about this, and I just said inside I had a little bit of smile in me. That the information was really there. The points were really there for you. The accuracy is there. The connections are being made. And that's how I feel when I read this stuff. The celebrity rock star. I mean, how can you not inside just smile a little bit? Just a little bit. Beyond the abuse it is. I mean, let's put it in reality. These people, if they didn't have the following, it wouldn't be a problem, would it? If they didn't have their minions in every part of your life, it wouldn't be a problem, would it? And that's the problem. They do. But otherwise, this is really a fun musical going on. And at the same time, in the face of this dogmatic imposition of sustainable development, that economic slave, this sustainable debt system they're putting on you, the Pope also comes out and says fundamentalism is a sickness. I'm just reading from headlines anymore, folks. I don't even get into the stories. There's so much more richness in the stories. I just don't have time to talk about it. I talk maybe too much on other things. I don't know. There's so much to talk about. This guy comes out and actually says fundamentalism is a sickness that is in all religions. Does that mean now he's said he's not in a religion, or that the infallible one is included? Francis said, as he reported to the National Catholic Reporter's Vatican correspondent, and similarly by other journalists on the plane. We Catholics have some, and not some, many. We Catholics have some, and not some, many, who believe in the absolute truth and go ahead dirtying the other with calumny and disinformation and do evil. They do evil. And I say this because it is my church. We have to combat it. Religious fundamentalism is not religious because it lacks God. It is idolatry, like the idolatry of money. How about the idolatry of Gaia? How about the idolatry of climate change? How about that, Pope? This is absolutely fascinating. Fundamentalism. The climate change is a religion. Eco-terrorists are gangrene. It's the green religion. Go read the research about Gorbachev and the green religion coming to the Presidio in San Francisco, given a building there by the United States to advance the Presidio Trust across the public land impositions that were taking out production. And lots of other things. Fundamentalism is a sickness. He's coming. He's agreeing that the Catholicism is a sickness. He's agreeing when he says climate change is so fervent as a fundamentalism is climate change. He's saying this is an evil. I call it concentrated evil. I think we are in agreement. If I can not laugh and laugh out silently here. They're telling us, folks. It's time to stop ignoring it. Fundamentalism, he is claiming, is evil, and then he agrees he's part of it. Then he's telling you that fundamentalism is a religion, that all religions have it, and then I'm going to point out to you that the green religion sits there that he's denying. That is a fundamentalism. So I'm going to take his word for it. He's telling us the truth here. The problem is that truth means he is evil, as I've been trying to tell y'all, if you hadn't seen it. Gaia does not believe in God that way, the way they say, and certainly not Jesus Christ, let's put it that way. Catholicism doesn't either, but except for as an excuse. And for the atheists out there, they're just going to deny it all. That's still a religion. That's still, to me, a belief system, a philosophical position. If you can call it, how far do you expand the word religion? But a fundamentalism is also an attack on your culture too, isn't it? So this statement stands beyond. He's attacking beyond, even in his mission. He hasn't told you the fundamentalism of climate change or sustainable development or these minions that promote it is bad, but he's saying it. And I'll agree with him because we both agree on that. Doesn't mean because I don't like what he's doing, and I don't know about him himself. I don't know the guy actually, but I found out he was a scientist. He should know better. Then he's supposed to be in this high position. Well, now I understand there's a fiduciary obligation he's got to be true to. He truly is supposed to be infallible to that obligation, and he's not. Only in this case, he tells you the truth. Then he's omitted to tell you that he's evil too. That's the felony of omission I tell you about in an authority. He calls out the harm. He calls out the evil, but by omission does not include himself in that. You have to do that. That's another felony. Because in the moment of his silence, he's moving to get you to do something or do something against you through other people. That's being an accessory to a felony, isn't it? And I just kind of run through this. I'm trying to get in your minds how you have something new to say to address this real crime against us that comes underneath the warm and fuzzy things. That these fundamentalist gangs in the world are evil, period. And they can come by any costume and they're still going to be evil. Even the FBI, the upstanding FBI, all of it has been just destroyed. Any idea of goodness is destroyed. It's time for the people to acknowledge that and do what it takes to resist it and then stop it. Because these gang members' fundamentalism does what? It blinds you. Same thing as a culture, and I'm not saying this in a negative. A culture is a cool thing in that it gives you a sense of the world from the people that lived in a place. And I've always thought that was a good thing. And then you can transplant that to other places that are similar in allowing you to continue that culture, which I think is still cool. And so you can get people like going from all over the world showing up in some place like San Francisco, and you have all these little nations, like little Italy, little China, little this, little that, little Portugal, little Cuba, All right, everybody, and they all live in their little cultures, but they all live real close to each other. And yeah, I'm sure there's frictions and stuff. I come from a little different thing where we had all these cultures where you're neighbors. I mean, you could have people from Africa, from especially Vietnam when it happened. You have people from the deep South. That was another country actually. People there, everyone's living together. And yeah, you have your problems with different neighbors, but it's not a cultural thing. It's just that your culture is like suburbia. But you bring with you, it was still inherent in us, those latent cultures that we came from, that extended from places all over the world, that is going to be destroyed, and is destroyed in a gang. You will live that culture, and everything else you knew before was gone. And you'll do acts, rituals, in order to prove that you've abandoned the other culture. That this is what they're trying to destroy in people. That this culture that they're putting on you is what I tell you about multiculturalism. The diversity is the accepting the behavior of a different belief system or culture, which is a fundamentalism, which the Pope admits is an evil that we have to resist. Because these fundamentalist ideas may be wrong. And I say it that way because I'm wanting you to go look at this thing called sustainable development. You know, you've heard me on the record talk about all this kind of thing and bring out all the proof I think is proof. I really do hope you go back and read some of these things, like the Broadcaster. I really hope you engage some of that. Yeah, some of it's news stories, you read it, but there's things, these words, there's links, there's source documentation in the links that allow you to go see this for yourself. So you make your own decision. You know where my position is on this. But I may have something wrong. markonthebeast@yahoo.com. I'm open to anybody who can show me some of this. I mean, I don't want to make the wrong decision, especially since I'm telling you all about it. You may not even agree with me. I may have a true proof, and you still don't want to agree with how it relates, how it goes and works in the world. That's fine. That's not a problem. That we have the ability to do that is really the power, isn't it? We can still get along. It doesn't really mean anything to our daily existence. We just live that way. If you want to believe there's no sun, and you want to believe that global warming is happening, and so you turn on an air conditioner and open your freezer and let it work into the atmosphere, great, do it. Go ahead. But I'm free on my property to say, well, I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do some other things that I think are actually the problem. I'm feeling a little bit too cold. I want some carbon dioxide in order to trap the heat. How's that? Why? Because we had a really set answer. I think, as I've told you before, as we found out in the Spanish green shoots, if solar energy was really the bee's knees, which it could be, given that the United States was willing to foot the bill for wars, they could foot the bill for the tools to stop global warming in giving everybody a solar panel and electric car. I told you how that would work. They were already doing. I don't even know if they're still doing. I stopped looking at that. The credits. That's what credits are. Subsidies from the government to go ahead and do it. If they really wanted to stop this, they could. And they did. That's the truth. So the lie is the excuse. That these fundamentalist gangs that are imposing this upon you need to be stopped about. And this is the evil about these fundamentalist gangs. Those that believe in it can be religion, can be church. I think it's more church than people in their beliefs. Organizations we're talking about. 501c3 things that are state-sponsored for tax purposes. And I told you a long time ago, that position is shown to be the fraud that it is, because you don't have to, if it's really taxes that you're trying to look at, or you have to follow a tax law. There's been an output it's not in 503, but it's in another section, 508, that treats you as a 503, but without all the obligations that when a church elects to be a 503, they chose to be a state subsidized church. That's a commingling of the belief. You can't do that. And that's one of the first things I noticed. That's something you chose to do. So you must have chose to abandon the purity of your belief, because there's no requirement. And there's no ability for the government to attack you if you're separate jurisdiction. Now, you can accept an attack to try to meet something out, but now you're back into international type provisions. So these gangs, these fundamentalist gangs, have their ideas, and if they're a gang like any other Crips or Bloods, they're going to get into a fight if you don't believe them. And so these gangs come up with wrong ideas. Then what do? Now we have a real problem. Well, this is the problem with climate change. As I told you, it's really just it's a relation on a statistic. It's not really even about the lack of the fact of the sun or that man causes anything. It's that there's this unproven theory that starts out that hasn't even seen peer review on its own. And we've come up with a lot of fundamentalist ideas about how this is supposed to work in that gang. When in fact, when you read and you understand the time compression that they're doing in your mind, you find things like this study, now even coming out of Scientific American. Climate change will not be dangerous for a long time. Well, first of all, the problem with that is they agree that climate change can be dangerous, and there's no proof of that, but at least they're coming out to tell you, wait a minute, this is on a longer scale. How this comes out right now is kind of, with the Paris thing, is pretty fascinating a bit to me. But they want to go ahead, and there's an evidence here for y'all, for those of the people that you talk to that are really weirded out about it, or don't care. And you have to say, no, you have to care because these people are using this lie to come and make your life more miserable. It's going to make your food cost more your electricity being cost more. It's not just because they're devaluing the purchasing power. That's also part of the plan. But it's because they're causing these people that make and produce what you need in your life, it's costing them more money. It's costing them more of these things that are trading as money. So you have to get people involved and tell them that, no, you should understand that it's important to you. You should care. So we almost like a double battle here. And then you're up against apathy, always. So Scientific American saying it's on a longer term. Whatever this is, it's on a longer term. And here's what their point is. Just kind of what I told you about the solar panels. If they're going to subsidize 100%, anyway, they were for quite a long many years. Between the state and the federal government, it's all the same. You could get a full solar panel to power your home, and I said, well, throw in a car. It's only $15,000 more. What the heck? It's half the price of the system for powering your whole house. They're going to subsidize it anyway. When they're putting bombs on innocent people's heads, they might as well make a solar panel for your house. Why not? If that's what they're worried about. What about the jets that are flying, dropping those bombs, and the carbon footprint? And the carbon footprint of the conference and the Paris Compact that they're trying to make. Well, but that footprint's pretty good that they don't talk about. But what if they made go ahead and they knew there was time, like the Scientific American article will tell you, that they look for the alternative energy systems that they actually need to really solve a bigger issue, which is the amount of power that we need, and do it affordably. That's how you get rid of poverty. You give people the energy they need, and you stop getting in their way. Instead, these people do it 100%, 180 degrees opposite. They starve you of your resources, and they manage you out of your ability to be wealthy. So now you're just in starve mode, instead of being in the mode where you feel you can give back. So that theory that they're working on alone, the social theory, isn't even proven as a science. Again, it's more evidence. These gangs are dangerous. These are terrorist gangs. Is us, folks. Religion is us in the sense that we're killing ourselves. We're allowing these people to make up these straw issues and using them to batter us to death. At least batter us into prosperity. That was a joke, folks. See, I got these subtle jokes. I'm a real comedian, folks. Y'all who are listening real close and you see what prosperity is, that's a joke, isn't it? Because you know the real definition of that word, that how it's used by the minions that are against us. So these fundamentalist evil that's out there, it's everywhere. These gangs, we're infiltrated and surrounded by all of it, folks. And we were supposed to be independent, and they use that against us. I told you, if you can keep it, folks. Can you keep it? Do you care to keep it? That was what they were telling us. That was the obligation. That another terrorist gang in the world steps up, another fundamentalist terrorist gang. Remember, the Pope said it. We're evil. Believe it, folks. Understand what he just said. I mean, really, I'm just cracking up inside. I am, really. I just can't believe what we're looking at, and it would make a really good comedy show. HBO probably special. that the Saudis make this gang over there makes a big to-do over what was going on Twitter. And Twitter, actually the Twitter company, responds to their threat, the Saudi threat, with the hashtag "Sue me, Saudi." Twitter responds to Saudi Arabia threats over is comparison. A growing number of people on Twitter. This is what fundamentalists do, folks. Remember, this is the most heinous, head-whacking country there is on the planet right now. One of the ambassadors of which is the head of Human Rights Commission over in the UN. Show you how stupid this whole thing is. Big, just a big laughable thing. I think they're laughing at us for allowing it. A growing number of people on Twitter have been telling Saudi Arabia to go pound sand since the kingdom threatened legal action over a tweet comparing their judicial practices to those of Islamic State. Neither the original tweet nor its author have been identified, but it's purportedly called is like the Saudi decision to mete out a death sentence as Ashraf Fayyada, a 35-year-old Palestinian poet who has allegedly abandoned Islam under the form of Sharia law practiced in the kingdom. Apostasy is a crime punishable by beheadings. Enough says is like. Folks, this is, to me, I looked at that, they didn't want this guy saying that they could be outdone by is. What they're saying to this guy is, you don't have the right to say is counterfeits what we are. We're not is like. We're the real McCoy. And so Twitter responds by saying, go pound sand. That's a good sign. But do you understand what the governments are doing here? They're attempting to use social media as a stage. Saudis actually come out and threaten that the Justice Ministry will sue the person who described the sentencing of a man to the death as, for apostasy. Apostasy. Boy, I'm really not having a good time to say. Apostasy. I'll get it. Concentrate, folks. That's what you got to do. Even me. As being is like. A Saudi Justice Ministry official told the pro-government daily Al Riyadh, according to the Reuters, the questioning the fairness of the courts is to question the justice of the kingdom and its judicial system based on Islamic law, which guarantees rights and ensures human dignity. Dang it. So, fundamentalism trumps your ability to question it. That's evil. And so there's, as the Pope said it, the articles just start making themselves known. I think more of these things I see, I'm starting to realize, it's like when you finally buy that, maybe that chartreuse green Ford pickup that you never noticed before. And once you bought it, you look around and there's a whole bunches of them. I think that's what this is. Once I see a theme, I start finding that there's evidence of it everywhere, and we're told this stuff all the time. Now, if that's not so, that's okay. Maybe I'm actually pulling these things out that are very sparse, but that they are important. That could be happening too. But to find this fundamentalist belief that will attack everybody, that challenges their belief, is an evil. It shows you how dangerous these gangs are. These gangs have people that work. I told you Maurice Strong, good riddance. Well, another one pops up, Soros. And what was interesting is who steps up to stop him, who by the title recognizes the threat these people are in the world. No one other than Russia banned Soros Foundation, the foundation, as a threat to national security and constitutional order. Following Russia's official retaliation to the Turkey shoot of its jet a week ago, in which Putin issued an executive order limiting employment for Turkish workers, restricting Turkish organizations, and reducing the amount of bilateral trade with Ankara. Perhaps a far more notable development took place earlier today when the Russia Prosecutor General Office issued a statement in which it recognized George Soros' Open Society Institute. Open Society Institute should tell you a ton. and other affiliated organizations as undesirable groups, banning the Russian citizens and organizations from participating in any way of their projects. Now you might say, well, so what? It's just Russia. What do they'd want to do anything, right? Everyone with the prejudices we have against Russia because of the Cold War and what our government told us here in America, we think they're the scourge. But guess what, folks? See, this comes out of an interesting position. Russia was used the Soviet Union. The Soviet order is what Gorbachev brings as a green religion, which is not what Russia's promoting right now, as they seem to be transitioning to a more realistic position. That Russia finds this Soros Foundation promoting the global governance as a threat to national security and constitutional order is not necessarily diametrically opposed from its interaction with the UN on an international scale. But it is what we said in our lawsuit, that these people and these societies or foundations, they are a threat to the national security and they are a threat to the constitutional order. In fact, they throw it over. And this is what Russia just found about these groups, these gangs. These fundamentalists are evil, which they're going to ban now. And they've been doing this periodically now, incrementally more and more, as they're finding out these NGOs and these societies and these foundations that speak in warm and fuzzy terms are really no good. They are the first line. They're the cells that start up the problem. And I think we should take note of that. And I say that not out of an opinion. We said the same thing. Only we attack the problem from the standpoint that your states are doing this. Their state governments are doing this. They have inbred. They have allowed infiltration. What did I say earlier? Inslee and Gitzhaber, and California was Brown. International compacts to British Columbia, completely unconstitutional. Yet all these people think they can get away with it. And maybe they did. I don't know. We can only fight so many battles. But Russia calls out these things now. Whatever Russia's game is within the context of global governance, I am, completely not liking seeing that. But within the context of what they're doing to protect themselves, they're exactly telling us another truth. No different, I guess, than the Pope saying fundamentalism is evil, but I'm not going to tell you I'm part of a fundamentalist movement. In fact, I'm part of two of them. And I'm going to use one to cause the servitude of all others like me in the other. Watch that little move, folks. Don't forget that little move. The subjection of all, folks, to the one. Remember, the Protestants, they're done. It's official. The war is over. There is no actual Protestants to the Catholic imposition after 2017. It's already over in 2015, but it's official in 2017. Fundamentalism is under the attack by the fundamentalists, folks. It's fascinating how they do this to us. And we can accept that. We can act as crickets against it too, and they'll win. But it's not being lost on Putin, who also starts to make this a lot more personal. And it's funny how these stories seem to speak to this point. That not only did the government, Russian government, ban these Soros-type foundations, or Soros, that one society, or the one foundation. Putin comes out and talks about this turkey shoot. And he says, Allah took their sanity. Putin accuses Turkish leader of aiding terror. That seems real to the point to me, real personal. Allah took their sanity. So it's going into an area that's not going to be real good. How he can speak for Allah, I don't know, but he's done it, folks. He's gone ahead and made the statement. It had to be the truth, though, right? I mean, no one can make sense of this except maybe, as I kind of pointed out a bit, about the gateway to Constantinople. Now, and that brings up this other dynamic that was going on at the same time. It hit a lot of spheres, of communication that Montenegro was offered NATO inclusion. You now have to get to the map, so you have to start watching what's going on here. That Montenegro is a very small spot. You don't think it's kind of like nothing when you look at it. I think it's on the Black Sea. If I remembered right. So much stuff, but they've been offered NATO inclusion. Right at the same week, as I told you, with the condition of the Azerbaijan condition and the Armenians, that does make the news the next week after I told you about this dynamic with why Turkey would be now in the crosshairs. Actually, the Turkey shoot's going to be on Turkey here. That came through as an energy and economy feed. Azerbaijan caught in Russian-Turkish crossfire. Now you have to understand there's a checkerboard jumping going on, that Montenegro is on the end of this chain from Turkey with a line that goes from Turkey to Russia, and now go back to the history between Russia and Constantinople and the Ottoman Empire. And this news came right after I was telling you about that. Looks like it might be doing that. Now, I'm not the expert there. I've been focused, but I've been also listening to someone else who has a better line on this, and I'm bringing my information together to try and make sense of this. And it's always amazing to me when I can do this and this stuff starts to lay out, that this story tells us about the Azerbaijani-Armenian problem. But when you look at the checkerboard, you have Turkey, which is counter to Russia. Then it's next to Armenia, which is, there's actually a little bitty state, but inconsequential. Then there's Armenia, which is relevant, which is aided by Russia. Then Azerbaijan, which is aided by Turkey. And then you have Montenegro, which is a little south, but on the ocean, which connects up the Black Sea to Russia. It wants to go to NATO, which is now back over to alliance with Turkey, which is then backed up by Russia on the other side. So you see a checkerboard of influences going on, that this story, Azerbaijan caught in Russia, Turkish crossfire, also speaks to the war between Azerbaijan and Armenia in this global geopolitical war that's been going on. That is opening this idea a lot clearer that there's something going on in history regarding Constantinople. In fact, I wish I had this story to prove what I was thinking was happening last week, so I could just make it part of that story. But there's a bigger deal going on here, folks. I just don't, and I'm talking history. This is not just some war. This is like really, really interesting times. Very, very cool. We're watching history, foretold history being done, in my view. I don't know that I'm making too big a deal of this, to watch this. As I've told you, I've been looking at it for decades and decades, and I was keyed into it by my uncle. And I want to give him credit, because without it, I don't think I'd have been, I haven't quite understood it all, but I was watching it, and sure enough, here it is. The new knowledge comes in, and you start seeing how it all starts to interplay. So there's a geopolitical dynamic going on that Russia says, we're not going to let these Soros-type foundations undermine us. He's also said these terrorists are going to come home. So you see, this is all part of the same maneuvering and remedying, that they're stopping the terrorists from coming home because they know these foundations are really the tip of the spear, like we were talking in the RLM chat, that the UN getting involved is really, it's the first step of the invasion. Maybe I will reference the Congo Republic. If you don't think that's how this dynamic happens, that as soon as Soros Foundation is banned, the State Department of the United States comes out troubled by Moscow's move against Soros groups. Now, why would they be so weirded out about it to make a comment at all? What do they have to say about anything? But as you read this, you say the United States State Department says it's troubled, in quotes, troubled, by Russia's decision to ban 2 of liberal billionaire George Soros' pro-democracy charities and label the organizations a threat to national security. Quote, today's designation of the Open Society Foundation and the Open Society Institute Assistance Foundation as so-called undesirable organizations will only further restrict the work of civil society in Russia for the benefit of the Russian people, State Department spokesman Mark Toner said Monday. This action is yet another example of the Russian government's crackdown on independent voices and deliberate step to further isolate the Russian people from the world. The only reason why this can be important, folks, is because the Soros Foundation is exactly a democracy-based charity, and Russia doesn't want United States democracy and rule of law to destroy their nation, like it's destroying everywhere else in the world. That they respond proves Putin's statement, proves the action of the Russian government for its own protection. That these people haven't figured out to keep their mouth shut about it is really amazing to me. It just shows me what kind of buffoons they really are. Don't know about diplomacy, don't know about statesmanship, don't actually work the game quite so right on the world stage. That you also know that that the government supports Soros should really bother you. It's the same gang of fundamentalists the Pope says is evil. And the Pope agrees with that. We're all speaking with one voice here, it seems, right? But no one seems to really point so much of this out. And I don't mean just to point it out, there it is. I mean, folks, this is the evidence that you really have to make a decision here, quick. Because all I told you, the economic construction, I told you I'm not so sure about Russia. Well, I'm surely not sure about Russia. I'm sure about the fact that they're involved on the international stage of the economic plunder. But along in the same week here, folks, we got the IMF confirms yuan inclusion is in the SDR basket at 10.92% weight above JPY and GBP. IMF staff earlier this month proposed that the yuan be added to the basket of currencies used in the value of the SDR, a reserve asset created by institutions in 1969, and today that decision is confirmed. The IMF's executive board decision today means that the yuan will be the renminbi, if I remember, if that's the same, I think it is. So those two currencies are tied. But remember, they unpegged it from the dollar a long time back. We talked about it behind the Woodshed, that was serious and important because they were adjusting it. They needed to adjust it to get it here. This means that the yuan will be included in the SDR basket October 1st, 2016, effectively anointing the yuan as a major reserve currency. This is where I told you that SDRs are an international money. You will see your FRNs. It won't matter. Your FRNs are useless to what they're doing. And this is the international development funding system, which the BRICS is involved also with. So Russia is not the good guy here at this level, that the yuan is brought in the basket currency to make a melded financial construct that can be worked with governance. In development, remember, the development is to develop the capacity to put more people into sustainable serfdom or debt slavery. This is just right to plan. They had, remember, we talked about it long years ago. They had to unpin the dollar to the yuan so that they could adjust it. They had to get China's economy wrapped up. This is how long ago this plan has been in place, and they finally did it to the point. And you'd think that once they decided it would go immediately, but still they have a year to do this. So this is on another type of plan that no one has been told about. And this question about Russia has now been acknowledged, and I want to put it out for someone to read if you want to, the blogcaster, but the title of this is Let's Cut the Crap. Vladimir Putin is helping usher in the globalist New World Order. And what I liked about this is he's really kind of laid a whole bunch of articles all the way through of things I've talked to you about in subject matter content, maybe not necessarily the sources. And then they also out the Veterans Today group, which has been admitted, I understand, and I saw the phrase, I don't know if what the truth is one way or the other, that they admit themselves they're 40% disinfo. So I don't know how anybody even continues it to even goes there. But they start with that, and they show how what I've essentially been telling you is going on, that we can't just let this other gang member in Putin get away with thinking he's lily white either. Remember, this is a multi-dimensional sphere, and they tell us that in the UN. They tell us what we're up against. Whether or not we can see each dimension, I don't know. We can identify quite a few. I try to behind the woodshed. I try to show you by the words and by what they're doing and their actions, the phraseology. It's all there. You can move it from the phraseology right to the position it is where that phraseology is used in their documentation. That's why that documentation is made to bore you to tears. Because if you want, they won't want you actually reading it, because it's easy to figure out once you do. And you kind of you got to sneak up on that information as well. So I had to, I'd read little passages. Oh, okay, I'll read a page. I'll read 2 pages, and then I'll stop, and I won't come back to it for a couple of days. I mean, that's how it started for me. And then you just slog through it. Then you realize what you're looking at. You just slog through it, and all you're doing now, you're reading to make sure if they've added anything new they're doing to the list of stuff that they've already listed that was wrong. But this question about Putin and the economic construct comes forward with the UN overtones. It needs to be understood, and I like this because it has a lot of information right on through. There's pictures and things, but I mean the conversation is there, the places you can go to see if you have any question how all these people are tied together and taking out your existence for a framework that's not established by you, yet they claim the right to do so for you. And your silence is your defeat on that. It's just how they're working it. So I'm not going to talk more. I could have a whole program on this website with this presentation. It's really just a lot of information I've told you from different places in one place, I guess. Is this what I thought was important? But he's calling out the question like I have. Be careful. Don't think this Putin guy, though he's doing admirable things in lots of good ways, and they seem to be taking the right actions, and he seems to be moving into an orthodoxy that has a better moral sentiment about it, certainly than before, when it was the Soviet Union, and they exported Sovietism into our country, our Western countries, which is what you're looking at. You can call it communitarianism or communism, something. It's really not even that. But that's the style of how they deal with it, is the Soviet style of dealing with things. Not necessarily the current Russian style, although that's always going to be in them. Very, very adept at people at doing these things. So if they ever come against you, you really have to up your game quick. And so that's where we are. We need to up our game really fast because they've already got the boots on the ground and we're infiltrated and surrounded. And we're finding out it only takes one shot, a properly placed shot, to take them out. But you have to be there to know where to take that shot. And once you get this under your belt, it literally, folks, I don't know. I wish I could knew more of whatever was in everybody's minds. For me, it is just the use of the words. It's immediate. I know exactly what to do. I know exactly where they're going. I know exactly how to address it. That part, once you get enough reading, that part is very easy. It's almost frustratingly easy. The answer comes out so fast you can't document it. That's another problem I have. But anybody who starts to see that I work with, that gets the foundation of how they're going about it, who's going about it, what they look like when they come and do it, even some actions that you see are going on, you can peg them just almost immediately. That part is not even work. It's just another thing you got to go do. And there's a lot of those things to go do. So though it may be a pain in the uptake, it's really breezy on the other side going down when you're going around taking these people out, if we had a whole lot more people to do so. And it doesn't have to, that doesn't have to be organized. It just has to be pressure all over the place. In fact, it seems kind of funny it's really worse for them when they don't know how it's coming at them, which is another tactic a strategy you start developing. Make sure you don't tell them everything you know. You only tell them what they're going to have to respond to, and that's usually them being a criminal. So all that part's easy to do as well. But with this Putin thing and this interaction, the multidimensionalness of it, and the interaction with is-us and how that's all this nonsense going on over there, I also came across at the same time someone else putting together the hidden origins of Syria's civil war. Again, I don't have the time to cover all this stuff in the way it really needs to be done, and neither in a way do I want to, more than to call your attention to understand the actual, what appears to be in this article, I don't know if they were so hidden, but recall what's going on in Syria. Gives you in a short distance of reading the dynamics, the players, you can then think about how the dynamic of the applications of things works out. That I thought it was important, another observation of how the world stage is played, that I'm going to put in the blogcast, or the hidden origins of Syria's civil war. At first I was going to read through a lot of this. I just wanted everyone to hear how this really works out a bit. Again, 100% accurate, you've got to make that decision, but enough that you realize that Syria was a setup. It was a setup from the inside. You realize that we all said this. I just wanted again to remind everybody that the so-called revolutions they were having, that they called were civil wars, that is us inside. Those are the mercenaries already. It's like anarchists claiming to be protesters that are anarchists in the protesting, and yet they're the cops. This is what happened at the start of the Syrian problem that the president responded to. He knew he had that problem. They didn't do what they do here, allow the anarchists to go burn everything down. They brought the military out to stop the insurrection inside the peaceful protest, and some people died. And that's what those people dying is what the West now blames Syria Assad as being a butcher, because I haven't seen any other evidence. My point is this is how they divide you from within, folks. They come in and they do it. I said what's happening over in the Middle East is happening in the United States. It's happening everywhere, actually. You have to know about this, because these divisions, these ability to come in and take you down from within, are so subtle at the level they're doing it for the agenda, the sustainable development. They don't have to throw a Molotov cocktail into a front end of a store here. That's done for other divisive purposes. The one that they're covering with that is the one that you don't know that's going on. God, I wanted to remind you here, we have an article, someone put it together. Review it, folks. You need to understand how the West is doing what it's doing. And why, whatever reason, ultimate reason Putin's doing it, they're stopping the nonsense, because you see now with Azerbaijan, Armenia, now NATO inviting Montenegro, and you see the checkerboard of control that happens to Russia. This is a bigger deal going on, tied together with the written history coming to tell us it's going to go this way. You have to see that so that you know where to prepare yourself, how to be the one to defend yourself in the face of an oppression that's here. In an economic war against you, you're going to be constrained to digital life, and they can flick the switch. And you hear him saying it, Apple's boss, next generation of children will not know what money is. Believe it, folks. You're already there almost. You're doing it. The next generation of children born in Britain will not know what money is, the boss of Apple has predicted. You think it's going to be limited to Britain in a global international order of control and prosperity, your shared contribution to austerity in countries that, if they were actually honest, could actually give you the remedy to stop using whatever power from someplace else by making solar systems on your houses and electric cars, if that was the real truth. Your future generations won't know what money is. It's going to be digital. It's going to be control. This is coming from Apple, not the fruit. The trees ain't talking here. Tim Cook, the chief executive of technology giant, forecasts the death of cash by the time current university students have a family. The death of cash. Have we heard about the cashless society? Again, proof. They're planning for it, folks. These people that run the digital world are planning for it. It's outside of you. You keep relying on this, and you're going to be owned by them. Cash is still used for more than half of the payments by consumers, according to Payments UK, the industry body, but its popularity is falling as people switch to cards and smart apps such as Apple Pay and Google Wallet, the two biggest criminals. And don't get me wrong, the technology that does this is fantastic. How much neater can it be? But what it does, it gets rid of your culture of weight and measure, which made the world real. And they get you in a digital la-la land. And they have control of that. I told you before in reading the Silent Weapons and Quiet Wars, they have a place in their circuit for you, and they doll it up real nice and say, come and plug yourself in. What I liken to be the paper application. Come plug yourself into what we have to give you. And they'll charge you all right. They'll charge you right up. Your kids will not know what money is. You understand how fast they're saying that this is, if I get terrified, I'd be terrified that it's been pre-declared and it's happening. It was pre-declared and in the condition that would have been the harm. No one has made stops to it, which is the real expose on the problem. Despite the fact that we were told we would go to cashless, you would think that people would see the danger in that they would have made some restriction, some obstacle to the harms that would do. And nobody has. Should somewhat terrify you at the point of your ability to proceed in the world in the future. And for your little ones who have no clue about this, literally clueless. Listen, our people, talking about it at the mining association meeting, I'm astonished people of my age and a little older. You know, when I was going through school, it was a great thing. I really did enjoy school. I did really well. I just kind of excelled. It was a wonder learning stuff. I wanted to learn the next thing. I couldn't be, it's hard to stop. Well, at some point the school system can't keep up, and so they had me doing tutoring. And so for a few years, when I got done with my work, I just tutored to help other kids out. That's kind of how I seemed to be. I wanted all of us to kind of get along, everyone move along and get graduated and all that. So it wasn't a problem for me to do this. With all that, I come to today and starting to realize that a lot of us, and older than me, who we thought, well, we were learning something, we had a capability, that we did have the basics. We aren't even close. I'm dumbfounded at this one. I don't know what to do about that. Again, evidence that before we came along, someone knew us better than ourselves, and they conditioned our existence so we don't even know how bad it is, the condition that we are in to make the selections, to make the elections, to make the decisions. That Apple's already planning at the same time I'm coming up. Apple starts in my lifetime. Apple starts when I'm coming in into that area, in the area as well. And they've already got it to here is one miraculous thing. If they can come up with that miraculous thing, why didn't they come up with one that was better? That's a pushback against this ID digital thing, this identity through government is starting to come out in people. And they say in Britain that your children won't know money. Folks, it'll be everywhere. Nobody will know. Nobody's children will know money. In fact, before some of us get out, we'll have money in our hand we can't use. It's going that fast. That a man is arrested in trying to be his independent self. Remember that government-issued ID I talked to you about before that brings you into commerce by doing it, by you applying it to yourself and saying under penalty of perjury that you are a commerce entity. Remember, that's how they do that with the application. That a man is arrested for microwaving his ID to fry the microchip and protect his privacy. This week, 29-year-old German man was arrested in Frankfurt Airport after police noticed that he had microwaved his ID to disable the microchip inside. Microwaving IDs is actually extremely common among German and other EU citizens who are concerned about their privacy. There's still some resistance in us, folks, but they're making it a crime to get rid of the linkage in your nose, the ring in your nose, the link that's a link to the leash in the chain around your neck or on your foot or wherever you want to say it. Government don't like it. People are resisting. That ID, though, is your request underneath their laws that you were an entity that they could regulate, and not the man or woman that they didn't have the right to come against. The man who has not been yet identified is now facing charges of illegally modifying official documents. Illegally modifying official documents, and accused of tampering with state property. There it is, folks. Let me read more. You're tampering with state property. Why are you required to hand out or carry around someone else's property? And when you applied for it, why didn't you understand it by your signature? You agreed to take care of that property. You put yourself into the obligation, didn't you? That these driver's licenses, these license plates on cars, these ID cards, whatever things that use state documents are state property. And it's illegal to modify it. Why do you carry their stuff? My additional point is, if they're going to force you to carry it, why haven't you established a cost to the state for you to have to carry their stuff? Every man and woman's worthy of their hire unless you're a person and a legal entity. I guess you're not, folks. So you have the ability to address this. This is on the administrative side of this as well. I know we come up, 45 minutes after I start or an hour and 45 minutes, I come up with this little tidbit of information for you to think about. It's right in your administrative procedures. If you're going to have to work to do something, and you got to be put as the custodian of someone else's stuff, did you take a bond against it, folks? Or did you just agree to do it in the application? Did you set up some resistance before you got there? No, great. He's resisting by trying to microwave his chips. Well, they don't like that. That should tell you that it's important. But he did it the wrong way, apparently. And now he's a criminal. Anyway, the story, IDs, right in there. The government's coming. They're going to take away your privacy. Everyone knows it. They're going to put you on this the fat list here for all the government benefits, and you're going to be starved out if you don't have it. And then if you do wrong while you have it, they're going to starve you out anyway. So I guess take your choice, because here it is. This is coming to a town near you. Actually, a pocket near you, those of you that carry these IDs that are the new technology. Real ID Act. See, they're making it impossible for you to do anything without it. You're going to have to know the underlying law to be able to challenge it. Do not forget what I've been telling you about the standard operating procedures of these agencies when they come against you to do this stuff. You got to challenge it, because it's coming. I said it's coming to the United States. You're going to see it here. Sure enough, United States Congress quietly passes law requiring a passport for domestic travel. And the question is it constitutional? A law requiring a passport book or passport card for domestic travel goes into effect in 2016. The United States Congress in H.R. 22, when it passed the House of Representatives on the 6th of January 2015, and the Senate on the July 30th, 2015. Currently, 6 months ago, folks. Currently, done it to you then. Currently, the bill is in the phase just prior to being signed into law by the President. So, maybe you can send some letters to him. Maybe you can do the coordination thing and say they didn't coordinate with their governments to do this. Maybe you have to do your impact study. Maybe you have to say, you don't have the right to take my right to travel. I'm not in commerce. You can't force me to get a document that's meant for the outside in order to use it inside. Maybe you have something in your mouth, folks, in your fingers, in your hand. Send it out. Start being the example of the resistance. This new law will be attached to the tax code. If you don't think this is a commercial construct, folks, it's right here. It's all the evidence. Section 7345. This title of Section 7345 is Revocation and Denial of Passport in cases of certain tax delinquencies. You then now see your passports tied to being a servitude to being a taxpayer under the law. Are you? What did I say a long time ago about how do you address that? The commissioner was supposed to give you a meeting, and he was supposed to tell you, go read the law, folks, Title 26. He was supposed to give you a meeting where he declared on your activity, which happens to be a business, that it was subject to tax, and what that subject activity was to the extent that it was, and the records and books to be kept surrounding that activity and the tax you're supposed to pay. That's due process. You're supposed to get all of that. No, everyone just files a tax form and just sends it in and says, I'm a taxpayer and I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to evade that by doing these special tricks that don't work. Your ID is tied to a commerce activity, folks. I said it. I said it at the beginning of this broadcast. I've said it for years. Your ID, I'm not even talking about your driver's license. It goes through the motor vehicle code of motor vehicle departments in most states. Some of them go actually through the county court, I think I've heard, but it still ends up being the same authority if you look close. The Real ID Act sets the standards for which the identifications are approved for traveling by air in the United States. You're a commerce entity as a passenger in that plane. Did they have the right to do that? Well, maybe they're going to say they did. You're going to have to find an alternative. When the new passport law goes into effect in 2016, 4 states will potentially be impacted. The 4 states are Louisiana. Told you Deep South was a different place. Minnesota, New Hampshire. I say that on purpose, folks. That doesn't sound like it's not from England. That sounds like it's still England, doesn't it? And New York, because it references the old York, doesn't it? We're not too far from the Queen. The reason that these states may force domestic air travelers to get a passport is due to these states not complying with the Real ID Act. The TSA in these states will have the option of forcing people to show a passport in order to get on a plane originating in any of these 4 states. There's your connection to TSA. There's your connection to the SOP. There's the reminder that Jesse Ventura could have done everybody a great service in fighting this, and he failed. He didn't. I don't care what he stands for. I don't care what he says. He failed. His attorney failed, and that's all part of the plan. You have to stand up. TSA means Standard Operating Procedures. In effect, you get to go in and say, what is minimally acceptable as my right to travel in a place that shows that I can have a right to travel? What is minimally acceptable? Getting a passport that I can't comply with isn't. Forcing me into an identification isn't. So what are you going to do as an alternative? And what are you going to pay me for in order to do all that? Because I'm supposed to be free, right? And this is an administrative imposition. I'm not supposed to suffer the takings where I didn't have to do so. Folks, get the list in your mind. Write it down. Go challenge this stuff. It's coming to you. I just told you a couple weeks ago. They're going to take this place and make it. They were open borders like the EU was initially, and then they're going to close them back down. And here's the United States following suit right after when, folks? Paris. It's right here. They're doing it. You're watching your right to travel. And they're doing it, folks, in the most part, you're not a commerce entity. They're fraudulently imposing the character of commercial status on you when you're not. You have to understand this basic stuff. We have to start pushing back. Your answer is, well, I can't get an ID. You can't force me to get a passport. You got to force me to get a passport. That's a violation of my First Amendment right not to speak with you and associate with you or not petition you. The right to petition, I have the right not to petition. Put this stuff out there, folks. At least you have to activate the Constitution. It won't speak for itself. Are you going to win? No. But we got thousands of people doing this. They're going to be so overwhelmed. Not much is going to happen. They're not going to be able to deal with it. Tying your ID through the IRS is the proof I've been telling you this is a commercial construct. Your IDs and your passports are commercial constructs. So what do? You fight back, right? You do what you can. Another example of someone who does that, but you'll see what happens. Maybe he's not doing it right. Maybe he is. You're up against a big plunder, and it's in the Bar Association. No driver's license, no plates, not guilty. That's where it starts, and yet it changes. You're dealing with criminals. Here's the evidence. You have to know this when you enter into the sphere of attempting to be independent and actually doing what your rights are, opposed to what the occupation wants. A routine traffic ticket caused a Papillon man to draw a line in the legal sand. It's a challenge of certain licensing laws that resulted in a surprising outcome in the court. Quote, Motorist does not have a license plate on this vehicle, said La Vista Police Chief Bob Lesten. The driver of the car didn't have plates or licenses, and he refuses to get either one. Quote, this is an unlawful stop, I believe, said Ernest Kuber on the cruiser cam video. What is that, folks? That's the point of first contact notice to the cop has made a big lawful mistake. You have to do that. Perfect here. Question: am I required to? It's my property. Cooper surrendered his license last year and didn't plate the car he purchased in September. Quote, I pay all the lawful taxes I'm obliged to pay, but a right cannot be licensed, taxed, or registered. Good statement. But let me show you something. When he bought that car in September, if he didn't re-register it, where residents are required to re-register it, the transfer of possession negated the prior attachment to the state, and he holds that property free from state imposition, unless he's doing the regulable activity. As a clarity to what he said when he bypassed this point about his purchase in September. That was a big deal if he didn't refile the papers and kept it private. It didn't enter the property, re-enter it back in the state. He then doesn't agree to be subject to the 30-day requirement because he's not that resident required, is he? He's not in the occupation either, is he? Cooper has been ticketed 3 times in 3 months, twice by La Vista police. Here's the harassment that happens you have to be ready for. I don't see many people that can survive a lot of this, but there's not many people that are maybe as aggressive as at least I was when this first started happening to me. That said, that we're still always dealing with these ignorant people will steal your stuff. And that's the reality. I've told you a little bit about how they did that to me to stop me in my documentary of child services abuses that are going on through the state system. And they took that truck too. Even though I was right in the law, folks. This is what you find out. My concern is obviously somebody who is not following the laws of Nebraska, said Chief Lawston. We're enforcing the law. We're doing what we're supposed to do, and we expected the motorists to do the same. And here he says motorists, and the party that's doing it hasn't consented to that status, has he? So is he actually following the law? No, he's been followed by what to do by an attorney. He's not actually following the law. We could find that by the road use side. Just go to your road law, folks. It's right there. You have the right to use your roads. It's not in your motor vehicle code. That's a commerce code for when you're doing those activities of commerce. As you see, it's tied directly to the IRS, and so are your passports. So you're not a commerce entity. Do you have a so-called passport? Ports, folks, are commercial places. You're passing the port of call. You're passing the port of entry. Those are commercial places. Do you have a document that allows me to pass your commercial port because I'm not a commercial entity? And when they say no, then you say, well, then you don't have the document to stop me. This letter is my passport. Now, you're going to have to stand up to that. They may not like it. The point is you have to have a better point. And you have to be able to know why you're saying it. They think they're enforcing a law on a motorist. He's not a motorist. Now we have the issue. Evidence of in Sarpy County Court showed Cooper does not have a car registration or driver's license. But Judge Robert Wester found him not guilty on both charges. The prosecutor said it has to do with the state records on Cooper's address listed in care of. Listen carefully right here, folks. Listed in care of, though he has a home in Papillon. I believe we had enough evidence to show he is a resident of Nebraska, but the judge disagreed. So based on what really made the difference, based on that is what really made the difference, said Assistant Sarpy County. Listen to this. You need to get this little in the blogcaster. In care of. How about just go general, in care of general delivery as well, and go there. That's not a resident's address. See, they have to find you as a resident, didn't they? It says it right here. These guys told you a big deal. And so I guess I'll end there. I've run out of time this week. Hope it was a little bit of information to help you out in your efforts to find those wrongs and make them right. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for your contributions. markonthebeach@yahoo.com for questions or information or whatever we can work out. Thank you to RLM reallibertymedia.com and Grimner and allowing me to broadcast and blogcast through his and replay the files through his website. And worldtruth.org, the social network, and the one who pays the servers, and the Spreaker account. Those donate for that if you can, folks. UCY.tv and Jules, and what we do. I'm in line also. I find out periodically on their website being played as replays throughout the week, and particularly on Thursday, this broadcast will be rebroadcast. So thank you for that, and all you Terrestrial broadcasters, thank you very much. Everybody can donate money or whatever, help to all these places, and maybe get the word out about the broadcast where I don't do very good at that, to spread the word that may be better than what everyone else is getting elsewhere. Thank you very much. Take care.